have one in America, for instance. We have one, I think, based in India at the moment. The idea is that peer-to-peer is always easier. So when we, as Satish mentioned, as IT or salespeople, when you speak to an organisation, it's never helpful for a non-domain expert to speak to a domain expert. You know the problems better, right? So people who are on the day-to-day front line, whether it be a doctor, a claims manager, insurance, you will know your problems or your challenges or where the improvements can be made. So everything starts from that. And then obviously we moved on to the actual compute power itself. The example that was given around Boeing. That's a great example in the sense that 4 or 5 years ago, Boeing couldn't even look at using computer modeling. It just wasn't possible because the compute power didn't exist. Now, obviously, as Adid mentioned on what Intel are doing and the processes that are out there, it's enabling companies to be more scientific. And you've probably heard the phrase about how companies are becoming data companies, whether it be a taxi company, whether it be a utilities company, everyone's collecting data. It's going to move soon, but everybody's going to be a scientific company, right? You can run an experiment. Budget, we were talking outside earlier, a budget for an IT project could be 1, 2, 3, 4 million dirhams, where an experiment might be 100,000 dirhams. Where's your money better spent? So everything's starting off from a low experiment. And then you move on to where does that experiment, how do you do that experiment? You work it with universities, you work it with research institutes, you work it within the end user. And so by taking your actual data, you can actually make a real life simulation. That's the key. So as Chris mentioned with the police, what we're doing with West Midlands Police, they have a current solution which is static data. The car is stolen. After the car is stolen, the owner wakes up and then says, okay, let's go find my car. That's too expensive. What we're providing is a real-time situation, and we will simulate that. As part of our trial, we are showing a real-life simulation. We take 1 year's worth of data, and we are going to show the system that this is what happened when you didn't react to it. In real life, this is what we would have done, and this is how much money you could have saved. So that's the process that we're working through. So we can simulate that within our data center. And you can do that with any subject whatsoever. Again, as Jazz mentioned, this is where the ideas have to come from the end users. Then, obviously, in terms of developing that, you have the universities. Like I say, they will help. They will have some algorithms. They will have some research. But the solution that we will create, or the technology we will create, is foreground intellectual property. Okay, do not underestimate the code that was shown earlier, or the algorithm. That is asset value. These things are getting patented every day, and lots of people have ideas, and they release a paper, and other people get to use it for free. There's asset, there's money in that. And so by enabling those developments to happen, enabling those use cases to happen, to show the value that's being created, that is future revenue as well. One of the councils who Chris mentioned, they asked us, what do we get out of it? They want part of the IP, okay, which is very rare for a UK council to do, trust me. Okay, so that's your asset value. Then we talked about, obviously, as a service, where again this is very expensive equipment, but you don't have to use it, you don't have to buy it and then deploy it. Obviously with the park, obviously the way that it is set up here, the way our office is set up, the way the meeting rooms are set up, you come here, have a coffee, we get on a whiteboard, and we can sketch things out. Very, very easy. Well, obviously, I'm not from the UAE, so culturally and locally I won't know the information, but we have obviously even Mohammed's help, we have other people's help in terms of local knowledge, and also yourselves as well. Anyone who's got a problem, it take an hour, 2 hours worth of sketching out some ideas. And literally you'll find out from the first half hour, once you sketch out what your challenge statement is, the problems can actually start to be answered. So I welcome that any time. That's what the office we have is there for. That could be an evening one, could be a morning session, but it's worth sketching out the idea. And then once you have the idea, we start doing experimentation. That's a 12-24 week process. Again, something we hopefully highlighted in Chris's presentation. You then want to move on to actually scaling it. Once you get that 5%, right? So 5% is the only benchmark we're hitting. That's not a huge amount in terms of percentage, but how much you save is very big, right? So once we hit that, you can then start to scale. What that means is, as we mentioned with West Midlands Police or the cases from the council, you start small and you experiment out. So you might start with 2, 3, 4% of data, and as you start adding more sets of data, you then start obviously getting those savings across the whole department. So you're experimenting and scaling, and incrementally building that over time. And as Mustafa mentioned, the cost of that is controlled, right? That's something we're creating the value, we're incentivized in that way as well. So hopefully you got a good idea today of the overall way that AI works as opposed to your normal IT session. Are there any IT people in here, apart from Mustafa? All right, apologies for this. Yeah, but AI is eating IT, isn't it, at the moment? So I'm not going to apologise for that. Yeah. So the thing with these projects, it does begin with domain expert. We cannot stress that enough. I think once you start looking at implementing AI first and saying I need to get this to get this software and platforms in, that's where the AI deployment does get restricted. If it comes from a challenge statement and there's a clear goal as to what you want your outcome to be, that's the most important. You may not always get a value. Some of the figures we put up there in terms of what the cost to society or the cost to businesses are, they're not accurate. They're never going to be accurate. You can't always tell what the cost is because you're looking at such a sort of complex problem. So, but you have to start from something, right? And we'll help you to construct that. So, hopefully that gives you a good overview. It wasn't too technical, and it wasn't meant to be too technical, so the idea was to give you a bit more of a use case example. So any questions, Q's and A's?
Yeah, Q&A.
Do you want the team up here? Can the rest of the guys join me?
So nice presentation actually. We got some idea. Now my question is, we are talking about software as a service. Suppose we come up with some real-time problem related to healthcare or any service sector, suppose, and we are building a platform based on that, using some technologies. Of course, you are saying you are patenting and all. So if we are using those HP as a service or software as a service and building a platform, how to get fund for that? Then no one is going to, because something is not unique with that. And whenever the funding company actually want to invest in your business, they look for certain things like which cannot be imitated or something IP value is there. So how to tackle that issue? That is my question.
Yeah, sorry, where are you from?
From Gulf Medical University.
Okay, that's a good question. So again, I would say the challenge statement. I think defining that is the most important. The funding side. If the business proposal is that strong, where you say, look, this is what the problem is, and this is what the cost is, and we want to reduce this, we would look at that. Spending 5-10 hours on just that alone, we are prepared to do. And like I said, we're not looking to start with the whole data set. If we have a sample set from that, that's something we could even run ourselves, just to show you, look, this is what you could say.
Okay, thank you. Actually, my question is about the cost-benefit analysis for any project, for decision maker or for the using the business. They want to see, because you highlighted the benefit, for example, for the stolen car, how much recover. But what is about the cost of the project itself? Because if the cost-benefit ratio is less than 1, for me as a business, I will not take the risk and enter this. Thank you.
Sorry, where are you from? Do you mind introducing yourself?
Actually, just I moved recently to the business from academia. Just my company name is Face Company. I want to start. Retired, I want to start business.
All right. Okay. Yeah. No. Again, the cost benefit analysis. You're saying. I think what you was trying to say was how do you actually expand it up and look. We do that calculation. Going back to the police one's a good example, right? The analytics come from. Government funding. The University of Kent got £400,000 or £500,000. That's government funding. The police themselves says, look, in the West Midlands, we don't have the big budgets to try something new. And the initial thing was they wanted it for free. It's not ours, it's the university. So we will say, look, you can have it and you can code it, you can do what you want. Only when they realised they didn't have the compute power and the actual the developers to do it, they had to obviously rely on us. That, again, as Jazz mentioned, that 4 to 6 technology transfer level. So in that instance, in the UK, we have some different tax laws which enable small taxpayers, income taxpayers, people who are salaried, they can invest part of their tax payment to what they pay to the government as investment, and they get like 85% back if it fails. So in the UK, there's some different mechanisms where we can get investment relatively easy. Those processes don't exist here at the moment. So yes, sometimes you need outside investment, but in most cases, as I mentioned to the gentleman before, you do that cost-benefit analysis for the whole thing. You don't. What we will do is we will say this is the experiment. This is what we believe the scale is. If the scale is big enough where perhaps the end user doesn't see the benefit and we do, that's something we'll look to invest in. Yeah, that does happen.
I think some of the issues that sometimes we face is when you talk about investment is that the first initial information is not available for you to collect that data and then do your data analysis. If you look at this graph, the power of AI comes into level 4, 5, and 6. But some of the issues we face, and you talk about investments, are not invested in 1, 2, and 3. You don't have data points that you can collect those data. You don't have historical records that you can go through. You don't have data lakes as well, or processes, or softwares as well. So I think any entity looking to benefit from any AI solution needs, first of all, to see their data sets, how they collect the information, where they collect it from, how are there synergies with other operations as well. So that could be part of the investments any entity looks at. But I think without having that in place, it will be hard to drive 4, 5, and 6 and onwards. Once that's in place, I think it's going to be much easier. You're going to be able to quantify your costs. You're going to be able to come up with decisions, see your problems, come with solutions as well that the team here keeps asking about. Statement challenges. Any entity you go to, you ask, what are the issues you face? And I think some of the times we go and then whether it's visiting government entities or private entities as well, and you come up with these solutions and you ask a simple question, what are the problems you see? And usually the answer is, oh, we don't have any problems. But that sometimes defines the purpose of why we want to do AI. And we always say opportunities for development are always there. But again, it is important to have those data. Decision makers, people who strategize, always need to have that data in place, run them through the softwares, see what the future might like. So I think if you look at it into investment, there are two things we should consider. One, the investment on the AI itself, and then on the infrastructure that needs to be in place as well. So I hope that answers the question as well.
Thank you. We have another question.
Hello, also, my name is Rima Tassi. I am assistant professor at the Higher Colleges of Technology. My specialization is data science. My question is to Mr. Mustafa. So, Mustafa, you were talking about high performance computing as a service. This means that when I will use a service, my data should be transferred to your devices as well.
Yes.
Yes. And what about the privacy?
Okay, very good question. See, if you've seen our HPC is designed with one of the things highly secure. And I have mentioned that the HPC what we have designed is not an Ethernet-based protocol. It is in a separate protocol which is not vulnerable, which is InfiniBand and Mellanox switches.
So it is
So what is that? Yeah, so I will tell you. One is an HPC ring, where our HPC components are installed in terms of compute, in terms of storage. Okay. On top of it, there is one layer where the outside user can connect and do only visualization of the data. But suppose if you have 10 terabyte or 10 petabyte of data which you want to bring it to us, you have to bring on a media which will be going to a scanning station, which will scan against all the vulnerability of the data and ensure that the data is clean, and then we'll upload into the HPC. And then you will just be connected.
Yeah.
Connected is through the internet or through VPN, which we have a first layer of security and we have perimeter firewall. Once you are connected and you run the job, that will give you the desired result. So after processing your job, your data is available, which you can take it back again, back and
Now I pay as I go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Another question?
Just wanted to add, we love universities. Yeah.
Another professor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shiva, an AI scientist. I'm just trying to understand your model. If an organization is at stage 5, where the technology development and prototype development has already been done, how you come into play? That you do funding, or what is that model? We have a solution which is originated from researchers, a bunch of academicians and practitioners from the industry, scientists from the industry. And we are at the stage 5. So a company like us, how do you help?
No, I mean, I think Mohammed made the point earlier, and Mustafa said also, in terms of the infrastructure,
Okay.
that, if the product has been tested on HPC as a service, then you know what the result is, right? So look, again, going back to our policing and council one, those algorithms have never been tested with real data, and they've never been tested with high performance compute. So we're doing that. That's part of the investment we're doing. Intel and Lenovo have been helping us with in the UK. So likewise, if anyone's got a TRL5, it must have been tested on high performance computing, right?
We have done that part on GPT in a different provider actually.
Right, yeah. So if you've already done that, then it should be easy for you to get an investment, then.
No, this way.
All right. We'll have to look at the pitch deck and see if it's worth it. We'll have a chat later. You can send that through. We'll have a look at it.
Sure.
Great. I think it was really interesting. So thanks again. I don't know if you have a last question. No? Great. Gentlemen, thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everyone for joining us.